Love, lovella, ahela do. Cosella, ahela do. Sulala, ahela do. Clusella, ahela do. Troubles make fin knavona savelische.
Hello and welcome to Girls with Goals. I'm Niamh Maher and I am delighted to welcome to the show this week journalist Razan Ibraheem. Razan, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Delighted to meet you in person. I've been following your work for a good few years. So
Thank you.
We're going to start the same way that we start every show. So it's with our game. It's called 6 Words or Less. And it's for any of our listeners or readers of Her.ie or viewers of the show now who may not know who you are. So you have to describe yourself in 6 words or less. So in your own time.
It's very hard to do that, especially if you want to describe who you are.
Yeah.
And I always prefer people to describe me, not for me to describe myself. But
that's the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. However, I would say just facts about myself. I am Syrian, Irish journalist, and I'm so involved in refugee crisis and the humanitarian work. So I would say this is kind of summarized and sums up who I am.
That's perfect. We could actually probably just wrap up now. Like we don't have to get into it. Like you said there, so you're Syrian, you're born in Syria and you came to Ireland in 2011 to study and you've stayed, obviously. So before we get into the work that you're doing, like you mentioned there, I would like to go back a little bit and hear about growing up in Syria and your childhood a little bit, because obviously, you know, at the moment when you hear Syria, you think of the conflict and the war that's going on. So I would like to know what kind of a place it was for you growing up.
Exactly. I was born in Mediterranean town, just I'd say 1 hour away from Turkey. So it's beautiful atmosphere, beautiful culture, and open culture as well. So I was born in this city and I was raised in very positive environment. My mom and dad are teachers, so we have this kind of the fight for education. So education was number one in our family. I was as well like really kind of crazy child for like I'd say till my teenager. I was tomboy. Really. Football was my biggest and my most important game to play. Wow. Cycling as well. Then I went to, of course, school, educated in Syria. And then after that, I did English literature at the university. And part of the English literature was Irish literature. So I was really familiar, before even I came to Ireland, about the Irish culture, the literature, like for example, we did Samuel Beckett.
Wow.
And Bernard Shaw. And Seamus Heaney, for example. All of these.
I had no idea that they like taught that in the Syrian education system. So Irish literature was a big part of your education.
Absolutely, because we did 4 years English literature, part of it English, Irish and American. So all English-speaking countries. So and then I did my English literature in the University of Syrian, and it was as well really turning point. I'd say in my life. So this is where my eyes were more open, and I was introduced to other cultures, other literature, other civilization. So it was extremely important part of my character, I'd say, at that time.
And so kind of while you were finishing up your education in Syria, did you always want to go and continue your education abroad, or was that something that just kind of came about naturally?
No, I mean, I've always wanted to. And when I finished my undergrad, my dream was to do my master's and try to continue my studies. So to achieve that, I had to work hard.
Yeah.
Of course, I had to save money to travel abroad, to work abroad, and save money for my fees for the university. And of course, there were amazing people in my life who helped me as well, So that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to travel and meet new people, see new culture, and get more knowledge from the education system. Because one of my dreams was to build and set up my own language school back home in Syria. But unfortunately, it was not possible.
And so you came here then to study in UL at the University of Limerick in 2011. And what were your initial reactions of Ireland when you came here first? What did you think of us?
I mean,
be brutally honest.
No, I have to say, it's incredibly nice people, and I think you hear a lot of about these comments, So it's just incredible, nice people. Believe me, from the first day I arrived to Ireland, from the taxi driver to the shopkeeper, to the people in the university, to my classmates and my teachers, I've always had a great experience and interaction with the Irish people, and there is something in common, I'd say, between Syrians and Irish.
Really?
In terms of welcoming and inclusiveness, this is big part in our culture, and in Ireland, I think the same. We always ready to help people, and I see it as well in Ireland. So it's kind of, I didn't find myself very isolated or felt lonely at all. Especially from the start, because of, as I said, it's such a beautiful culture. But of course, there are challenges as well, because my English, for example, was, at that time, I learned English at school. I learned academic English, but not speaking or street English. So that was kind of a little bit difficult, especially to express myself ordinary, like very daily life. But then, of course, by practice, by talking to people, by integrating and meeting new people, it always helps. But yeah, I mean, from my personal experience, it's really, really positive. And really beautiful, I have to say.
So, obviously around the time that you left Syria, the conflict there, when it started in 2010, it was initially, peaceful protests that were met with, violence that happened. So you were here in 2011 and your family were still in Syria, although I think you had a sister in the UK. But at that time, were you fully convinced that you were going to go back to Syria?
I don't think any Syrian would expected that the situation
would have will
last long and evolve to what we are right now. At the start, and especially the first year of my life in Ireland, my decision was to finish my studies and go back home. That was, I haven't even thought 1 second that I will stay in Ireland or go another place. So my idea was to finish here, go back home, set up my language school, and live with my family, live with my friends. But it didn't happen. Situation escalated unexpectedly, and it was extremely tough for me, for my family, and I think as well for every Syrian, because Syria is such a beautiful, positive, inclusive society, multicultural, from different religion, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. We've lived always in harmony in our life. Ancient civilization, all of that, Amazing food. The food is just incredible.
So this was very unexpected.
Absolutely.
To the Syrian people. And what were the conversations back then in 2011, 2012, while you were here studying, between you and your family? Were you encouraging them to maybe leave, or what kind of, were you having fear about the safety for your family at that time?
At that time, we kept communication a lot, like almost every day, but we haven't at all spoken about them being traveling or leaving.
Right.
Because especially my mom and dad, they are so rooted in Syria, and for them the idea doesn't exist.
Right.
That they live. It's so hard
Yeah.
for Syrian to leave their homeland.
Yeah. When
It's
you
something
think about it-
everybody should know. It is extremely hard.
And presumably they're, probably older as well, and the
Exactly.
language barrier as well. I'd say that must have been a huge kind of, well, not a huge thing, but how can you
No,
at
it
that
is,
age
yeah,
and
yeah.
at that stage in your life to expect to leave, probably wouldn't have been something that came into their thought process.
Absolutely, in their 60s, and they
Yeah.
have to learn English from zero, from scratch,
Yeah.
and they have to live in a society. For example, us young people,
Yeah.
it's easier for us to integrate and meet new people and go out.
Yeah.
My mom and dad in their 60s, or even Syrians, like older Syrians, it's extremely hard
Yeah.
for them to integrate. They can't. They are still. Syria is still inside them.
Yeah.
It's not easy to just forget it like that,
Yeah.
So we were keeping communication, but I wouldn't say that the idea of leaving was mentioned at that time.
And then obviously, the situation over the last few years has escalated beyond comprehension, I would imagine. To the world, it's beyond comprehension. And I can't imagine what it would be like for a Syrian being out of that and looking at the things that are happening. Is it fair to say that because the conflict is so complex and ever-changing, that there's a lack of understanding from people around the world about what exactly is going on in Syria now?
It is extremely complex and highly politicalized. Many factors are interfering. So actually, it's not Syrian issue anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have any voice of what is happening right now. But what is hard for us, especially millions of Syrians, like now outside Syria, is just watching what's happening and feeling helpless. You can do anything to stop this, or to help, or to make peace, or make people talk together. It's literally like watching your child dying.
Yeah.
And you can't help. You can't do anything. So it's just really it's affecting every Syrian psyche, every Syrian personality. I'd say from inside, like a lot of us are shattered.
Yeah.
But it is important to know that Syrians have unbelievable resilience. Like from the most like extreme, violent and sad situations, they will rise again and continue.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me hopeful, to be honest.
And you have to maintain hope, obviously,
Absolutely.
especially when something like this is going on. You mentioned there about the millions of Syrians who aren't in Syria anymore and who are kind of watching this happen in their homeland from various places around the world. A few years ago, you went and you spoke to the UN about the refugee crisis, because when we think of war, a lot of the times we're looking at the atrocities that are happening in the place, and the refugee crisis that this has spawned essentially is mammoth. Can you tell us about that and the work that you've done with refugees? Because I know you went to Greece as well a few years back to actually work directly with them. It's almost like going, trying to get as close as you can without actually being able to get back into Syria to help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the United Nations 2015, there was a high meeting in Geneva to highlight the Syrian refugee crisis, and I was invited to be part of it, and it was extremely important for me because the stories of these people I met, and I witnessed as well something I witnessed when I was in Greece. So I went to Greece in 2015 and 2016, and the reason why I went was as I said before, watching what is happening on TV screens, on social media, and you feel you are nothing.
Yeah.
This is when, just out of the blue, I was watching one of the photos published on social media, and it was written Kos, Greece. So straight away, this is where I should be. I should not be here sitting on my chair and watching this from distance. I should be there with these people and help them. And I straight away took the decision. In few days, I was in Kos, and I spent around 10 days helping people, meeting people when they arrive at the shores, providing water, clothes, shoes, food, anything they want, and trying to settle them in the island before they continue their journey. And I met amazing people, and just a few days ago, I received beautiful message from somebody, I don't know the name, but they messaged me on Facebook, and that's like maybe in 2015, and now we are in 2019. They said, "Hi Razan, I'm sure you don't remember me, but we met in Greece, and you helped me in finding shoes because I lost my shoes in the sea. I just want to tell you that I'm happy. I am in Sweden. I am learning Swedish, and I am working right now."
Wow.
So this message absolutely made my day and sums up everything, you see. So because of that, because my work with the refugees and my bare witness of what was happening on the islands and their stories and the atrocities, I went to Geneva and I spoke about these people and the amazing people I met, children, women, men, still strong and positive and heading on to settle down and start a new life.
And what was the reaction that you got from your speech then? As in, obviously, we hear about the UN and the work that they're doing. Do you think that they're doing enough?
I think they are trying to do the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there's no question. They are trying to do the best. However, I believe now the funding from the countries, especially European, Americans, and the rich countries, for example, the funding to the refugee crisis decreased.
Right.
And that dramatically affect the situation of the refugees. For example, in Jordan, the biggest refugee camp, I think, in the world for Syrians. And there are plenty of activities, plenty of things trying to make the life easier for these people, but it's still not enough, and there's so much to be done. But I believe it's not only providing water and bread and all of that. Education is important. Getting children to school is extremely important. But what is more important is to achieve peace in Syria. That's the focus of the United Nations should be, to achieve peace so refugees would go back home. That's the most important.
I mean, I think, in terms of hearing the stories like that, you've spoken to refugees and you're able to relay their stories because you're a journalist as well. So the work that you do is about reporting on them. But like that, I think that sometimes people forget that these people have come from an unimaginable situation and an environment that thankfully most people will never experience. But then, they're probably thinking about the same things that we're thinking about when they wake up in the morning. So they want to get a job, they want to cook their own food, they want to go grocery shopping. And I think almost bringing back that humanity to them must be very important. Was that something that you sensed from them, that like almost getting back to a sense of normality was really crucial?
They want to be ordinary. They want to live ordinary life. They want to be able to sit with their children and watch TV, for example. example, they want to be able to cook something nice for their kids. They want to be able to work something they like or something they enjoy, just really ordinary, nothing more.
Yeah.
And that's the simple human right.
Yeah.
It's to do what you like, what you want, and what's benefit as well for your family and for your children. So this is a minimum, I'd say, what they need. The situation is still not improving, I'd say, especially in refugee camps in Lebanon. It's one of the worst worst you can ever imagine, the situation in Lebanon and Jordan, Turkey, and more importantly, the refugee camps in Greek islands.
Yeah.
Like, we don't hear a lot about them, but it is one of the worst.
And are we talking about the conditions of these camps?
Exactly.
For the people? So there isn't enough funding to, like that, give them a little bit of humanity back. Is that what we're talking? We're talking about basic rights.
Exactly, basic rights. Like, they still live in tents till now. They can't cook. They don't have access to money to get food, for example. The funding is there maybe in Greece in particular, because it is directly funded by the European Union, but we don't see it in the refugee camps. It should be reflected on the situation of the people inside the refugee camps. And many of them, they are trapped in the camps. They've been living there for maybe 3 years,
Intense.
And intense limbo. They don't know where to go. They don't have any notion. Where are they going to leave this? Are they going to stay forever?
Yeah.
Or continue? So it's extremely difficult situation for them.
It sounds like it's a global refugee crisis. So obviously, like, we're talking about you and your experiences with Syria, but like you said, there isn't a huge amount of coverage maybe on refugee camps like that in Greece. Why do you think that is? Is it are the people who are running them, or are they trying to veil it a little bit, or why do you think we're not seeing? And I know we're seeing some of it, but why do you think we're not seeing all of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it like that.
Yeah.
They are trying to hide the truth, because, to be honest, it's a scandal.
Yeah.
If you want to see what is going on truly,
that people are living like this.
It's absolute scandal. So they want to hide it. And I'd say I would blame the media as well. So the attention on refugee crisis decreased a lot. There is no attention like before. And the situation is worse like before. So this is as well, the media is to blame. There is very little coverage and raising awareness on that. So I'd say both are together. And the European Union, they don't want as well this to be shown, I'd say, a lot in the media and be addressed. So all of these factors together, but who pays the price?
It's the people in the tents.
The children, they have no school. The mothers, the fathers, these people who pay the price, the ordinary people.
As well as the work that you've done, you've been very vocal in campaigning about ending direct provision here in Ireland. And I suppose I kind of just want to get your stance on that a little bit. And for anybody who doesn't necessarily know, because direct provision is in the news frequently here in Ireland. So it was started in 2000 as kind of an emergency response, but it's been hugely criticised. Of everything from people saying that it's, there are human rights issues that are going on within these centres, and people who are then given refugee status aren't able to move on from it because of the bigger housing crisis that's happening in Ireland itself. What are your views on it?
Like, I know personally people living in direct provision. They have refugee status, as you mentioned, and they've been living almost 3 years now. And they are a family. They are really educated, amazing family. But the mother recently was telling me, I mean, where I'm going to go? Like, it's been 3 years and they are stuck in the system. So it is actually dehumanizing people. And it should be, like people say, demolished direct provision. Like, there are many aspects of it. First, the process should be faster. It's impossible after 5 or 6 or 7 years, people living in direct provision as asylum seekers, and then after 7 years, you tell them, thank you so much, your application is refused, go back home. Their children, they don't speak their native language anymore. They speak Irish, they speak English, and they are educated in the system. So they feel Irish. You know, after all of this, you can't just like make them leave. That's extremely inhumane. You know, so I think these cases should be exceptional. And they should stay and try to help them to continue their life here. The process should be faster. That's essential in direct provision. And the situation, or like the daily life situation, as you mentioned, access to food. They be able to cook their own food.
Because some of them
For
are
example,
kind of more like a canteen kind of situation where like necessarily they don't have the ability to go into a kitchen and kind of cook for themselves. And it's these kind of just day-to-day what a lot of people might take for granted. And that's when it comes to like, that's when I think human rights come in. It's like, well, what is it that we consider, you know, things that allow us to be independent and give ourselves self-respect as well.
And you can bear this if it was, for example, for a few months. You would say, it's not a problem. But when you live years and years on the same situation, that is the difficult part of it. But what I believe, it's extremely important, the permission to work. That should be granted. Like a lot of people I know in direct provision and outside direct provision, they are amazing activists. They like the main part of it is work.
And why is it that they can't work? Is it because of that? Is it because of all the things that they're trying to process? Like you said, you know, things need to be faster when it comes to getting their status approved. Is that why they're not able to work? Because if I try and put myself in the situation, and for me, you know, if I'm in, just for example, I was somewhere and I was seeking asylum, you know, obviously if you're in a direct provision place, you know, the taxpayer of the country is paying for your food and your accommodation, all that kind of stuff. Like, I know that I would want to get back out there in the workforce and pay taxes and give back to the country that was essentially like keeping me from a very volatile situation. So I don't understand in my brain why they wouldn't be given a status or given the ability to be able to work. So why is that?
So this is a government decision. And part of it, I think they don't want to make Ireland as a country that would, you will be, for example, asylum seeker and work. So they want to distance themselves from that. So they wanted only asylum seeker, you can't do anything else. And this makes kind of people not thinking of Ireland for maybe to get asylum or to get refuge. This is part of it. But as well, there are complex documents because you need to get, for example, your Gen.ib, your work number, national number, a lot of these things. And you can't do them without permission from the government to work. So it's kind of hard. However, I truly believe if the Irish government really say, listen, we're going to do it. Let's be brave, have a brave decision, and let these people work. It will happen. It's just we lack leadership in this issue.
I read as well recently there a report about, I think it's not far from here, Hatch Hall, I think, in Dublin city centre, where there's 800 people who are there in direct provision that have, you know, achieved their refugee status, and they are essentially, you know, able to leave, but there's nowhere to go. So they're going to go into emergency accommodation, into hotels, into B&Bs with their family. Their kids will still be, you know, going to school and in the Irish education system and things like that. But that must be a really terrifying thing to be thinking of if you're in direct provision and if you know that you're about to leave and you don't have anywhere to go.
And some people, they can afford accommodation, for example. They can afford a rent. If it was HAB or house allowance, but they are facing a problem that landlords are not giving them, for example, a house to rent.
And is that because of the HAP stigma? Because I've done some
Big
work with
part of
homeless
it.
people in general, like aside from the refugee aspect of it. And, you know, I spoke to one man who he like took out all of his documents and he showed me everything and he was like, I am so prepared, Niamh, I have the money, I can rent, but it's this HAP that just the landlords just go no. So that is something that I think really needs to be spoken about.
Absolutely, it should be addressed, and there should be support from the government on these issues. You know, there should be more better management because it's not only for refugees, even for Irish people, you know, like they need to have easy access to the HAP, and landlords, they should just
be accepting.
Absolutely, like flexible and accepting. Why not? You know, like it's. But at the same time, sometimes the government makes it complex for the landlords. To have HAP or house allowance. So it is just mutual between the government, the landlord, the management between them. And things will happen and will be better. But we don't have it. That's the problem.
I mean, you mentioned earlier, you know, about Ireland being so welcoming and being so warm and stuff like that, you know, much appreciated. But at the same time, when you look at the global refugee crisis, is there a stigma attached to refugees? Do you find from people who don't maybe understand everything about what these people have gone through? Maybe, you know, we talked about the humanity of them, like little things like going to the grocery store and doing this, but like as well, the trauma that they've experienced. Like, I can't imagine the PTSD that I'm sure like a huge amount of them are suffering. With that comes mental health issues as well. You know, is there a better way for people who will never have to deal with these kind of things in their lives to understand what's going on?
It is always back to personal stories and to the people, viewing these people as human beings, not as numbers, not saying like this, there are million here or 3 million here, but every one of these million has unbelievable struggle and sad and positive story behind as well, you know. It is so important to have this idea of why they are fleeing, what they have been through, and how they are now starting a new life and continuing the new life. So, as I always mention, when I talk to people about refugees, I don't even mention myself because I met a lot of people who have struggled and have experienced something unbelievable. Like one of the people, like a woman and her daughter, I met in Greece. They lost the 3 male members of their family, the father and 2 sons. So they are just literally a mother and 7-year-old daughter together. And they worked in Turkey in cotton factory for a while. And then they decided there's no education. So they decided to go to Greece and try to get education. And I met the girl, unbelievable, beautiful. And the smile is always on her face. And I told her, what's your dream? She said to me, oh, my dream is to have a pink bike and cycle to school every day.
Wow.
You know, so this is the simple,
very
you know,
simple.
Absolutely. Like she broke my heart, but I don't know I don't have any connection with her right now, and I don't know what happened. But I always like dream of her, like on her pink bike and cycling to school every day. Even
when you think about what she's lost, and
absolutely,
and her dream is a pink bike. It's really heartbreaking. I want to ask, you know, the situation with your family now. So obviously you left in 2011. It's 2019. Your parents are still in Syria.
They are still in Syria. However, my parents, as I said to you, they are so rooted. They came to Ireland. Because it was so long, and I said, please come because I can't bear the distance anymore. And they came to Ireland for a visit, and they stayed for 1 month.
Really?
They had the chance to stay forever. They had the chance to get work permit. They had the chance for everything they want. But they said to me, after 1 month, they have decided to go back because they didn't, even when they came to Ireland, they didn't think of staying.
Right.
They just wanted to come to see me and then go back.
Was that hard for you because of what's going on in Syria?
It was one of the hardest moments,
Yeah.
saying goodbye to them at the airport.
Yeah.
Because that was 2015 and now I am 2019. So it's been four years distance now.
Yeah.
And it was 4 years distance. So extremely hard.
Yeah.
And especially to know they are growing
Older.
without me.
Yeah.
Or without my brother or my sister. So they are on their own. And my mom, when I talk to her on the phone, she says, I feel I'm orphan.
Yeah.
This is what she feels, but still, all of that, still, they think they want to live in Syria.
Yeah.
They come for a visit for maybe 10 days, 1 month, but their base is in Syria.
Yeah. Well, it's that resilience that you spoke
Absolutely.
about earlier as well, that I wouldn't say that the easier thing would be to stay in Ireland, because I can't imagine how difficult that would be. But I think it's a true sign of people having hope and thinking that
Exactly.
what's happening at the moment, has to change. It absolutely has to. And that's kind of what I want to ask you next. So your brother is here now as well,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So that
And my sister.
And your sister's
Yeah.
here too. So that must be good as well. So you have,
Absolutely.
and your little niece.
Yeah.
Oh, Razan, I have to bring up the video that you posted of your little niece singing Oscuelga,
Unbelievable, yeah.
the classic song that we all learn when we're kids. Love, love, Ella, Ahena
Na
do.
do.
Yeah. So tell me about her. What's her name?
Yeah, her name's Syrian.
Syrian.
She's incredible, bright child.
Yeah.
She was in school, this year was her first year at school.
Okay.
And at that time, I'd say in September, October, my sister moved to a new place.
Yeah.
And we were actually in the car going for the first time to her new place. So we brought everything with us and she was moving out. And we were talking, and then she said in the car, she said, "Oh, I know Irish. I can sing Irish." I was like, "No, Syrian, you can't." She said, "No, I can." I was like, "Okay." And then she did a little bit. I was like, my friend, I was like, "Is she singing Irish?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm gonna take a video of that." And she did it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And she, not only this song, she learns many Irish songs and Spanish.
Amazing.
Irish, English, and she speaks fluent Arabic as well. Fluent English, fluent Arabic. The English is with Dublin accent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So cute. I love how she pulls her hat down at the end and she's so happy with herself. You posted on Twitter and it has over 450,000 views now.
Unexpected.
The definition of a viral video. But with your permission, can we play it?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. So take a look
Absolutely.
at this. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Love, love, Ella, Ahela do. Cos, Ella, Ahela do. Sue, Ella, Ahela do. Clues, Ella, Ahela do. Troubles make fin knavona sa veliście.
Amazing. I absolutely, I love her. I love her face. She looks so proud as well. So how is she getting on with her school? Does she enjoy it? Does she talk about Syria? Would she remember or?
Yeah, absolutely. She it's after all, Syria is the culture, the society. So she needs to know about that.
Yeah.
So she speaks the language, the Arabic, and she knows about Syria. She knows about my mom and dad, and about our memories in Syria. So that's important.
Absolutely.
And at school, she's really excellent. She enjoys it so much, and she goes for music school after that and acting school. She loves this kind of world of art and
she's gonna be a star. So Razan, before I let you go, I just want to, we spoke earlier about the complex nature of what is going on in Syria. It's been going on for years now. And I suppose the thing to ask is, what are your hopes for Syria in the future? Obviously, you know, every refugee, I think it's a fair statement to say that every refugee wants to go home. Nobody wants to be displaced. Nobody wants to be living in a tent. It's unimaginable what people are doing. And then the refugees who come and are able to, you know, integrate into societies, it's amazing stories, and it is filled with hope. But would you and your family return to Syria tomorrow if you could?
Absolutely. When I know that there is peace, there is a new system, there is a new agreement between Syrians, going back is essential, and it's a duty for me. And I know when I go back, I know where to help, and I know how to help as well, and I know the right people to support me to help. And that's definitely my biggest dream, is to go back. Many Syrians as well, they can't wait to go back and go back to their towns and villages, rebuild their houses, and go to their farms and shops. So absolutely, it is essential for Syrians, you know, because as I said, the connection with the land is a big part of the Syrian culture. So definitely, this is big part of it, and I want to be with my mom and dad as well. You know, I miss them, and I feel sometimes guilty to leave them that time and that distance.
And what can people do to help? Like I feel sometimes, you know, as a part of the media and as a journalist, you know, we try our best to shine a spotlight on issues that are happening, and we try and talk about them as much as we can. But, you know, can people help, or is it about more understanding, listening to people, finding out more about them so that, you know, we're less flippant? Or what is it that you would suggest to people who don't necessarily understand what's going on and can never comprehend some of the horrors that people have experienced? Is there ways that people can help?
Like, first, it is important to have a human communication, face to face. Like, it's not only seeing what is happening in Syria on social media or TV screens. It is important to talk to Syrians, to meet them, to speak to them, and not only Syrians, to any refugee. You know, it's important to have this human connection, because it will break all the ice, you know, between, and it will make more mutual understanding from us and from them. You know, it's mutual. So that's number one. It is extremely important. There are a few projects that people can help. Red Cross, they have good projects, and like United Nations in Ireland. But there is, I believe, and something I'm involved in with, it's a new pilot in Ireland, which is called Community Sponsorship. And the model was in Canada, and it was applied in some European countries. Ireland now is taking the lead and trying to kind of implement this program. And this program is about simply 10 to 15 people, Irish people, get together and organize themselves and raise awareness and funding. And then the Irish government will be helping them to find a Syrian family in Lebanon, and they can sponsor them to come to Ireland, be their second family in Ireland. This program is incredibly important, and it has a huge potential. And there are some examples of people who already came to Ireland. The first one, family with a child, Lorca, her name. They came from Lebanon, and they live in County Meath now. Incredible experience by the community who sponsored them. And more in Lismore, and now in Cork. So there are amazing examples of this project happening. So I would really say, if you would like to help, and if you want to make a change, save lives, and and as well make something good in your life. This program is very important.
Yeah, and is that a government-run community scheme, or is it?
It's kind of mutual between NGOs and organizations in Ireland and the government.
Right. Okay.
So it's between them together.
Okay.
So it's among the NGOs and the government.
Okay, and presumably people would be able to find out about that just by having a Google and
yeah, I mean, it definitely, and there will be a new website because it's still at the early stages.
Yeah.
So there will be websites and instructions, guidelines of how to start your community sponsorship, how to start your group, what you need, and then they can access that, and it will help a lot, I'd say.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And then in terms of kind of the broader scheme, we mentioned there the government, like what do you think Ireland needs to do, like a little bit broader than what we can do personally to kind of help? What do you think Ireland needs to do to help with the refugee crisis that's happening on a global platform, not just in Syria?
So, for example, a few years ago, I think 2015, the Irish government, or 16, I'm not sure, but they said that they are going to bring 4,000 refugees. But at least get this number. You know, this is number one. You know, if you want to do it, get this number. And I mean, in fairness as well, the Irish government is doing, and there are a lot of really positive things happening. But it's not enough. I have always to say it, and it will never be enough. So family reunification, for example, families living in Ireland, Syrian families or refugee families who their other family is still living in Syria, the family reunification should be faster, should be easier to get families together. It is essential. And there should be more flexible programs of refugees coming to Ireland. That is really, really important. And the community sponsorship now, it's very positive step. So hopefully it will get more and more, you know, it will be successful. And I think it is going to be a great example.
Well, obviously, Razan, you are working very hard. You've won awards. You won our International Woman of the Year there a few years back. So what are you working on at the moment? So you work with Storyful. Is there any kind of projects coming up that we should be keeping our eyes out for? I mean, if you want to, you can follow Razan on Twitter at Ibra Razan, and you can see that video as well of your niece, which is amazing. But I mean, working as a journalist in Ireland, is that something that you've really taken to? Because obviously when you came here, it was to study English language, and you wanted to start
education,
a language.
exactly.
So that's kind of, it's changed in focus slightly, but
I'll tell you why. because of the Syrian war. Not only me, it makes every Syrian a journalist or a reporter or analyst. You know, it makes it like it became part of our personalities. You know, that you need to seek the truth. You want to look for information
and tell those stories.
Exactly, and tell these stories. So it became part of our daily life. And then Storyful came, and I've been since 2015 working with them, and it's, I mean, absolutely amazing experience. Extremely educational, informative, and challenging. Every day is a new challenge and a new story and a new things you want to investigate and look at. So, I mean, now my main work would be as well looking at social media interactions, analyzing social media data, for example. So this is mainly now, and of course doing podcasts, videos, all of this. You know, this is kind of in general, but from day to day as well. Work is reporting on a lot of the Middle East, North Africa, and international news. Now, the other thing I worked at, like in the last year, and is still happening, which is an exhibition by one of the really greatest artists I personally love, Anita Gornier, and we did together collaborative work.
I saw this
in the past is a foreign country. So it's still in the lab, the lab in Dublin 1, I think. and there is section of my work and her work together, collaborative work, and I think it is very powerful. And people, if they want to know what is really happening in Syria and why there are Syrian refugees, they should go and see that.
And so this is just to give people a kind of a little like snippet of what it is. This is you translating their stories, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's actually called a moment because the videos coming out from Syria are just unbelievable, and our Syrian way, when we lose somebody dear and somebody we love, our way of expressing is different from other civilizations and cultures. So I picked like few seconds of the most powerful videos, and I translated these seconds, and they came out really, really strong and important. I'd say, as I said, just have a look, have a listen, and see what these children are going through, because it's mainly children.
It's about getting back to that humanity that we were speaking about earlier, you know, and like I think it's fair to say that not everybody may understand the ins and outs of the political landscape that's happening, because it's so complex.
Forget about the politics. See the human.
Yes, exactly. And there's no excuse as to why people in every facet of structure can't look and listen to what's going on. So, Razan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in. Thank you so much. That is all the time that we have for this week. Please do go and follow Razan on Twitter. You can see all of her work there, and we'll chat to you next week.